I'm going to go ahead and say, spoiler, in the book, Soylent Green, not people.
What?
Soylent Green barely appears in the book. It is Soylent, and there are different varieties. Soylent being a portmanteau of...
Soy
and...
solvent? I don't know, I panicked.
Welcome to Mystopian, the podcast that evaluates the past, hysterically inaccurate predictions about the future that we now live in, because why have human-based food products when you can have inedible calorie fuel instead?
You.
I am your host, Patrick, joined here by my co-host,
Alex.
And today, I have a question for you. Have you ever watched the 1973 classic Soylent Green?
I've not. No. I am vaguely aware of its existence, mostly because of, like, the line, you know, that's, like, one of the top lines of, like, movie history.
Oh,
but
what line are you talking? I'm unfamiliar with this line.
You know, the line.
What line?
Soylent Green is people.
It's people.
Soylent Green is people.
What have you picked up through cultural osmosis about the film? Like, what is it about?
So I know it's sci-fi. I know that it is dystopian, that it's set in kind of like a near future. And I think it has to do with like overpopulation, like there's too many people. I'm assuming maybe that's why they're making Soylent Green out of people. That's just speculation on my part.
Okay, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And we'll get there. It did not start as a film, but rather it started as a book. A book called, and will you read this book title for me?
This is a really pretty cover.
I know, isn't it really neat?
Is this a classic cover or is this like a reprinting of a classic cover?
I do not know, but I think so. I think it is like the 60s style cover. It looks really cool.
Yeah.
Tell me what looks cool about it.
Okay. First of all, the title is Make Room, Make Room.
I'm so sorry. There are 2 exclamation points. You said that with like a moderate amount of emphasis. I need you to read it with the punctuation that is included in the title.
Wow. Okay. Make room, make room. Is that better?
Slightly.
Really, it looks like those 60s covers that you would see in like a thrift store where it's really sparse, it's white. It's really pretty. It looks very like 60s, but the book itself is so pristine, I just assumed that it wasn't originally 60s.
Yeah, no. This was some recent version of it. So this book, Make Room, is by Harry Harrison, a science fiction author known for books like The Stainless Steel Rat, Death World 2, Bill the Galactic Hero, and Planet of the Damned. He's a former, World War II veteran, an atheist, and Esperanto enthusiast.
Esperanto?
He loved Esperanto. He made his main character, I think in The Stainless Steel Rat, an Esperanto speaker.
For those of you that don't know, Esperanto is a constructed language. It's probably the most widely spoken constructed language. I say constructed in that it's not organic. Like there's no native speakers of Esperanto. There's no country that speaks it. It's a nerd language, really. But it's meant to have like consistent grammar rules, none of the weird irregularness of like our more organic languages. So I always find it really fascinating when I know of anybody who speaks it. By the way, Harry Harrison, that is a fantastic comic book name.
Right? Yeah.
Like that is absolutely a Stan Lee like protagonist character name.
Yeah, Harrison was born in 1925. He died in 2012. 2 of his biggest fans are Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's unexpected.
Neil Gaiman became a fan of his and interviewed him for a magazine in the 80s and came to know him and considered him a friend. Terry Pratchett said that Bill the Galactic Hero was the funniest sci-fi novel he'd ever read.
Oh.
And, Pratchett's
they're funny.
Yeah.
They're very funny guys. So was this book, like, funny?
No, it wasn't good. This book I mean, it's not like bad, but it's also definitely not good.
Okay.
I feel like it would have had no life if not for the fact that Soylent Green became this culturally relevant thing.
Huh. You say culturally relevant, and I mean, at this point it's just, it was a movie, and we know that the movie existed.
I mean, there's a lot of movies we don't know existed, so,
Sure.
He said he got his idea, well, I'll just read the quote. The idea came from an Indian I met after the war in 1946. He told me, overpopulation is the big problem coming up in the world. Nobody had ever heard of it in those days, and he said, want to make a lot of money, Harry? You have to import rubber contraceptives to India. I didn't mind making money, but I didn't want to be the rubber king of India. So I started reading a bit about overpopulation, and I got the idea for the book. Stayed in my head as I watched the population trend going the wrong way. The thing took about 8 years to write because I had to do a lot of research, which was worth it.
That's a lot. I'm going to be honest. Like, that's a lot to take in. That's a dude sitting at a bar who has not taken the hint after the third. That's crazy, man. That you are not interested in the rest of that. What? How does he go from selling suggestions of selling contraceptives in India to 8 years of research into what you've said is not a great book?
Well, first of all, he didn't want to be the rubber king of India. That could have been his life.
Sure. Yeah. No, I also would not want to be known as the rubber king of India.
The other thing is he talks about how nobody knew about it, but overpopulation was in no way an original topic in 1960 or whenever he started this 8 years of research. Have you ever heard of the English economist and clergyman Thomas Malthus?
No, I don't think it's ringing a bell.
Thomas Malthus is one of those early economists
Sure.
that specifically his projections gave economics the name the dismal science.
Wow. So real chipper guy.
Yeah, well, he wrote an essay called An Essay on the Principle of Population, and that book identifies a specific key problem with the world, and that was that population growth would be exponential while agricultural production would be linear.
I'm plotting the graphs in my brain right now. Thank you, 7th grade algebra.
I've got something I'm going to want you to read for me really quickly.
Okay.
So this is a quote from an essay on the principle of population. And I should have looked it up. I bet that it's got a longer title. Everything had longer titles back then.
Oh, yeah. It was something, 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 comma, or something even longer.
Yeah. Okay, so this is his kind of key thought.
Okay. The power of population is so superior to the power of the earth to produce subsistence for man that premature death must in some shape or other visit the human race. The vices of mankind are active and able ministers of depopulation. They are the precursors in the great army of destruction, and often finish the dreadful work themselves. But should they fail in this war of extermination, sickly seasons, epidemics, pestilence, and plague advance in terrific array, and sweep off their thousands and tens of thousands, should success be still incomplete, gigantic inevitable famine stalks in the rear, and with one mighty blow levels the population with the food of the world.
So what's old Tommy Malthus saying here?
We're all gonna, there are gonna be too many people and not enough stuff, and it's gonna lead to lots of famine and not having stuff.
Yeah, and he views this as inevitable, that this is just the nature of life on Earth, that we're going to grow and keep making people, and that eventually we're not going to be able to feed them.
Okay.
That was in 1798.
Okay. So farming, from what I remember, is a little bit different from our more industrial farming today.
Yeah, I mean, Malthus is wrong. And he's wrong about a number of things. He's wrong that population growth is inevitably exponential.
Mm-hmm.
And, I totally understand where he was talking about the doubling rate, but the doubling rate is slowing down, and we'll get to that later. But
yeah, there's some countries that are now experiencing negative population growth, right?
Right, exactly. And then also he's wrong that food production is linear. Food production was just on the cusp of powered machines and pesticides and, genetics. Like, he was wrong at the last possible point to be wrong quite in that way.
So, I mean, he was basing it off of the information that he had at the time, which is a running theme through a lot of these predictions that we've read. But based on what he knew of things, like assuming that those things didn't change, would he have been wrong?
No. Like, if we had continued to double forever, absolutely, we'd all be walking on each other's faces because there wouldn't be enough potential room. But
I'm really not enjoying that mental image. Thank you for that.
Wait till I show you the movie.
Oh, no.
But, he was wrong, and he was wrong very quickly because science changed. And so this idea didn't really go away, though. This turned into this pseudo-scientific view of well, there's a lot of people, but it's all the wrong people.
Oh, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to get a little racist.
Yeah, it gets really ugly. And that's, continues well past Harry Harrison's book. Essentially, this becomes a key idea behind eugenics. The idea that some places and some types of people are reproducing too much. And honestly, there's a hint of that. There's a whiff of that in this book. That's not mostly what this is about, though. So, Make Room follows three main characters. Our primary character is Andy. Where's Andy from? Who knows? Who's Andy's parents? Doesn't matter.
No backstory.
No backstory whatsoever. This is very much in the vein of film noir or detective stories. Andy is a detective. He's a hard-boiled cop.
Oh, it's a detective, like a sci-fi detective story?
Kind of. He's a detective, and he spends about half his time doing investigations and the other half of his time doing riot control.
Is that, that's not what cops do.
There were...
detectives aren't, doing, crowd control at, the local, St. Patrick's Day parade, right?
Probably not, but this is a world in which there are constantly riots. Food is in great shortage, and people are always angry, especially the eldsters.
Eldsters?
The eldsters, which is what they call, old people, which is what I would call them, but whatever.
I'm saying the eldsters just sounds like made-up teen slang.
And I absolutely thought that the eldster plot would go somewhere. And they constantly talk about these eldsters. Early on, there was this charismatic eldster that was, riling up people, and I was like, oh, that's going to get somewhere. It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
And this is where I spoil this for you. In the book, Soylent Green, not people.
What?
Nothing to do with that. Soylent Green barely appears in the book. It is Soylent overall, and there are different varieties. Soylent being a portmanteau of...
soy and... solvent? I don't know. I panicked.
Pretty good. Lentils.
Soy and lentils make soylent. No. You have to take the back half of the second word. Everyone knows that. Brangelina.
Well, Harry Harrison didn't. So, Andy's a detective. He lives with Saul, who is the obvious author insert.
Ooh.
This is the thing that if he was alive, from the 60s all the way to when this is set in 1999, this is what he would be like.
Is he a Marty Stew or just
No, he's just there.
He's just there. Okay.
But Andy's life changes when he goes to investigate a murder of a man named O'Brien. And we follow his life through that investigation. What Andy doesn't know, but that we, the reader, do, is that our second main character, and this does switch viewpoints through chapters, is Billy Chung. He is a teenager of Taiwanese descent who lives in a cargo boat city in the harbor.
Oh, okay. So kind of, I feel like I've seen that before.
In Lagos now, there's, urban overpopulation is very much a, real problem, and you can kind of see that there.
So it's all the boats tied together and people live on them, you know, as if it were a floating city.
Exactly. Billy Chung was delivering a Western Union telegram to O'Brien when he saw his apartment and was like, hey, this will be a good place to rob. And he comes back and he does that, but O'Brien is there, and so he hits him in the head with a crowbar, and he leaves without stealing anything.
So how early in the book do you know who the killer is?
I think it's the second chapter.
Okay.
Maybe it happens pretty quickly.
Okay, so it's like a Columbo thing where you know who the killer is at the beginning, and you get to watch the detective put the clues together.
Yeah, but Columbo is good. Also, the kind of nature of Columbo is that Columbo interacts with the killer.
Yeah.
And the killer's always pretty evil, and then you kind of get a fun thing of that. But in this book, Andy and Billy don't meet until Andy captures him and kills him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And also, Billy's not really evil. He is a victim of this overpopulation thing as well. And we see him kind of on the run from police. For a while there, he goes to New Jersey and he hangs out with this religious zealot because there's this thing about like the change of the millennium from 99 to 2000 that's going on that doesn't go anywhere.
Okay. It seems like it's this attempt to make social commentary, but everything seems kind of lackluster. The killer's just some kid who just breaks into his house. Like, there's no conspiracy to figure out. I would just assume from the line in the movie, like, presumably there's this discovery that Soylent Green is people, that there's, like, a conspiracy or something, but you're just telling me that it's just some guy breaks into a dude's house and kills him, and that's the story.
But the rest of the story is about Cheryl.
Cheryl?
Cheryl.
Not Cheryl.
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 Okay. Can you spell that?
Shirl. It's like short for Shirley.
Okay.
But, you know,
Cheryl.
if Shirley's just too much for you to say, it's Cheryl. I think Cheryl is actually harder to say than Shirley. Shirley is O'Brien's girlfriend, but after his death, Andy comes to investigate. They very quickly have sex, and then...
But, sorry, I feel like you just yada, yada, yada. When he goes over there, or...
I can't remember because I'm conflating a little bit with the movie, but it's pretty quick. They just kind of do it. Just, you know, it's very perfunctory, like, you know, and it just kind of happens.
As these things do.
As these things do. And she lives in O'Brien's apartment for a little bit, but then she loses access to it, and then she moves in with Andy and Saul.
Okay. I'm assuming she has, like, a three-dimensional personality with agency and needs and wants of her own. I'm sorry, I couldn't even say the whole sentence there.
No, she's pretty much nothing, as female characters are. She exists largely for Andy, you know.
Sure. Well, when you said that they almost immediately had sex after her boyfriend was found brutally murdered, I didn't really assume that she, you know, had a lot of oomph to her.
Yeah, it's not a good book. And what happens is Saul winds up dying because he's rather old. When Saul dies, another family moves in. And I'm going to have you read this little section. This is from page 270 about the rules where you can get a squat order if there is a vacancy. So I'm going to have you start right here where it says, Andy didn't answer.
Andy didn't answer, and Tab turned to her. A squat order is issued by the court to anyone who can prove they are really in need of a place to live. They only give so many out, and usually just to people with big families that have had to get out of some other place. With a squat order, you can look around and find a vacant apartment or room or anything like that, and the order is a sort of search warrant.
So what has happened is that Saul dies, this Belcher family finds out that there's a room open, and they get this squat order put into place so that they can just move in.
You mentioned before that Saul was rooming with Andy, and then I guess now Cheryl. So this is like one of those rent by the room kind of apartment deals?
Yeah, kinda.
Like, that's what I had in college. I lived in an apartment, but you didn't rent out the whole apartment. You rented out, like, a room in it.
Right, and Cheryl is rooming with Andy, so she doesn't just take her... Honestly, I think it's kind of weird that it's like, well, there were two people living there, and then now there's two people living there. Why is there suddenly a squat order? But
and that means that a whole family can move in?
And that ultimately is the end of their relationship. She can't handle it because the family is just poor and awful. Like, it is this awful stereotype of poor people, and they're obnoxious and annoying. And so she eventually leaves him, and the novel ends with him catching the eyes of her one day when he's working riot control, and she is now on the arm of some other rich guy. And that's the story. That's the whole story.
That's the book?
Yeah, it's mainly about the concept more than anything else. This is one of those novels where the city and the setting are itself characters. I'm going to run through some of the facts of what life is like in Make Room. So there are 35 million people in New York City. Do you want to guess how many people lived in New York City when this was published in the 60s?
10 million?
7.8.
Okay.
And
a lot less.
Yeah. And now it's like just over 8. So
like
it's
that's still, I guess I would have assumed that it would have been a lot higher.
Yeah.
Like going from the 60s to now.
Who can afford to live in New York City?
Nobody lives there. Nobody can afford it.
This is a world where there's no running water. And so in order to get water, you go down to like these community water dispensaries. A lot of the riots are when there's these terrorist acts that are like breaking up the water lines from the upstate original aquifers. And so, but people go down and they get buckets and cans.
I just want to point out, not having access to water is like a huge deal. It seems like that's almost just like set dressing, but if it was genuinely 35 million people without consistent access to water, I feel like that's the story.
Yeah.
Like,
it's also one of those things that is probably the closest to predicting a potential future accurately. We are going to have water problems, but it's not going to be because of overpopulation.
No, I mean, we've got climate change and drought, and some of that is also exacerbated by supply issues with, the water being rerouted to these big industrial farms.
Yeah. This is a world where whiskey is rare and expensive. It costs 200 Ds for whiskey.
200 what?
200 Ds. That's what they call dollars in the future, man.
I was going to say, I'm really hoping that is slang from the book. And that is not just your weird. Also, I mean, he was correct in predicting that D would be slang. But a little bit different when you're talking about 200 Ds right now.
This is a world where there's no more coffee. Instead, they drink Kofi, Kofee. So he predicted the weird off-brand,
oh my gosh,
products with the weird name. This is a world where there are secret speakeasy butchers. If you're rich, you can go in and you have to give a code word to get down there. And you can get all types of things, including dog.
Okay, meat being a rarity, that doesn't surprise me. If you've got overpopulation issues, meat is always kind of the first thing to go in terms of food. So, I mean, is everybody just unemployed?
I mean, he's a police officer. There's bodyguards. I mean, you don't really see factories or anything. This is also a world where 80% of people are on welfare. And so
it's weird. There's no production of anything, but there's clearly not a labor issue.
Not a labor shortage.
There's clearly enough people, so.
I mean, there's no gasoline anymore, but you do see apparently the most common form of transportation is those little pedicab type things. Everybody's getting pedicabs in the book.
Okay, where somebody's just carrying you with a little cart kind of thing. Okay.
So there's people who do jobs, but they're not making things.
Okay.
It's an entire service economy with no manufacturing whatsoever.
Seems like there'd be somebody who's willing to take advantage of that, unless there's just supply chain issues, which
if there's no
mood,
if there's no gasoline, I'm guessing that the whole idea is that there's no fuels to transport people or transport goods, really.
Nobody's developed alternative energy sources.
At some point they mentioned about atomic power, but they're it takes 5 years to make an atomic plant. And I'm that's not that long, but all right.
But do they have electricity? They have no running water.
They have intermittent electricity, and Saul rides a little bicycle to power the apartment.
Okay. All right. Man, this sucks.
Yeah. It's also a world where there's a lot of crime. So at one point they say there's 5, maybe 10 murders a day, which comes out to somewhere between 1,800 and 3,600 murders in a year. In 1966, you want to guess how many murders there were in New York City?
So I'm going to guess in the 60s in New York, 2,000?
It was 882 in 1966, the same year the book was published.
Okay, that was lower than I thought.
In 1999, when it is set, do you want to guess how many murders there were?
I'm going to keep my same number. I'm going to bet it all on 2,000 again.
It was 903.
Oh!
So even though the population increased, the murder rate was about the same from 66 to 99 because it has more to do with economics than it does with just straight population. Although in all fairness, it got up to 2,600 in 1990 because the late 80s and early 90s were quite bad.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking about, is that time period seemed to be a high crime thing.
Only 3 whales are alive.
Oh.
So.
Do you just know that there's 3? 3?
It's mentioned that there are 3. 3 whales.
Oh.
They might as well just name them if there's 3.
Yeah. Yeah. You got mama whale, papa whale, and baby whale.
The main thing is that there's no meat anymore. All food is processed from plant life. They have subs in the oceans processing plankton. There's actually a couple of different forms of this type of plant food they eat. They eat energy.
Oh, no. That's not good.
I think that's from the plankton. But more importantly, there's Soylent. So there's no colors for Soylent in the book. It's just a straight meat substitute, kind of like Beyond Beef. They talk about like Soylent steaks and stuff.
I mean, I love an Impossible Burger.
Yeah, I do too. So very much different. There's a few accurate predictions. Talk about how there's 50-inch TVs, at the very least the wealthy have. There were 50-inch TVs in 1999, those giant big projector TVs.
I wonder if he pictures them being flat screen, though.
Probably not. He probably thinks they're tube TVs. But he talks about how there's lots of channels.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a thing. He says there are 344 million people in the U.S., and we're just over, or we're right at 344 million people now, which is kind of the odd thing.
So wait, so you're telling me that his dystopian of where there's just too many people, where there's no anything, the population that he has is our current population?
Yes.
But I don't have to make room. There's no making room here. We got room.
Listen, he did 8 years of research.
Yes, exactly. Wait, I forgot about that. You're telling me, hold on. You're telling me this guy did 8 years of research for this book, and it did not occur to him to do like just basic math? 300. I mean, I read somewhere that if you put the entire world's population in the density of Manhattan, it would only take up, like, Texas. We're not in danger of running out of room. And you want to tell me that he thought that the current population that we were at right now was people, as you put it, walking on people's faces?
Yeah, I'm going to let you read a little section here.
The sun was higher now, and the heat was mounting in the sealed tar and concrete valley of the street. The band of shade was smaller, and the steps were so packed with humanity that he couldn't leave the doorway. He carefully pushed by a tiny, runny-nosed girl, dressed only in ragged gray underwear, and descended a step. The gaunt woman moved aside reluctantly, ignoring him, but the men stared at him with a cold look of hatred stamped across their features that gave them a strangely alike appearance, as though they were all members of the same angry family. Andy threaded his way through the last of them, and when he reached the sidewalk, he had to step over the outstretched leg of an old man who sprawled there. He looked dead, not asleep, and he might be for all that anyone cared. His foot was bare and filthy, and a string tied about his ankle led to a naked baby that was sitting vacantly on the sidewalk. No, I'm going to get through this. Chewing on a bent plastic dish. The baby was as... Sorry. Okay. The baby was as dirty as the man, and the string was tied about its chest under the pipe stem arms because its stomach was swollen and heavy. Was the old man dead? Not that it mattered. The only work he had to do in the world was to act as an anchor for the baby, and he could do that job as well alive or dead.
So there's a job for you. Some people are baby anchors.
I'm just saying, there seems to be a lot of room in, like, the Dakotas. Like, is this just a situation of, like, the cities are super overpopulated?
Well, there's no transportation, so yeah, kinda. I mean, listen, the world had 7 billion people in this story.
But, Patrick, she asks, I could be incorrect, but haven't we passed that number?
Oh, yeah. We're almost 8 billion people now.
It's 8 years.
He did 8 years of research. Like, you can't expect him to get everything right.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, so what we're going to watch is the trailer for Soylent Green. And I just want your reaction as we go through. You can pause it if you want.
New York City, 50 years from today. Nothing runs, nothing works.
He gave me a quarter of a kilo.
But people are the same. And people will do anything to get what they need.
So just 50 years later, nothing works.
Yeah, so this is 50 years later. So one of the things that they do is they push the timeline. You know, Make Room is only like 40 years in the future. This is made a little bit after the book. So it's from 73 to...
Is it right now? Is it
2023.
Oh, this is supposed to be us right now.
It's us right now.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think about the riot controls, what they wear there?
I could be wrong, Patrick, but I believe that those are just football helmets that have been spray painted silver with visors like crudely attached to them.
What they need most is Soylent Green.
Ooh, that's not tasty looking.
Yeah, so tell me what you're reacting to there.
So the Soylent Green product itself looks like it's really hard to tell when a cracker looks dry just on sight alone, but those are probably the driest looking cracker products I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's weird. They show like bread, but like wild colored bread. I'm pretty sure that no additives, no weird things you'd make it from would make it look blue.
No, why would you be adding things if the whole point is that you don't have stuff? Or are they using like a blue algae type thing?
Maybe that's what they're going for. But yeah, the Soylent Green itself is just crackers. The titular Soylent Green itself.
Simonson, board of directors of the Soylent Corporation, murdered because he discovered the secret of Soylent Green.
I'm sorry. Just the way that it just switches from him like standing there happy and cheery to just laying face down on the ground with murdered is it's just a little heavy-handed.
Well, we have Charlton Heston in this shot. Tell me what you think about the police officer uniform of 2023.
Okay, I'm just gonna, that looks like him on his day off. That you're telling me that is his uniform?
Yeah, it's a khaki jacket and a scarf and like a little train conductor cap.
He looks like somebody who got that it was like supposed to be Safari Spirit Day and like this is just what he had in his closet put together. Wait, so that guy that died is the head of the Soylent Corporation?
Yeah, and that's a big difference between the book and the movie. So, first of all, it's Simonson, not O'Brien. Mm-hmm. Name change? I don't know why. But not just making him like a rich guy, he is now a part of the Soylent Corporation, and his murder unlocks this mystery that is the overall crux of the plot. And one big difference is that this has a plot. And it is much more interesting.
Detective Thorne, he's got to find out what Simonson knew.
Dude, that dude just
Thorne's
died.
researcher.
Yeah, he's dead.
Courtesy of your next assignment, William R. Simonson, Chelsea Towers West.
Soylent Ocean.
Then how'd you get all these?
Cheryl, the furniture.
Wait, did they just... Hold on.
Okay.
Just let me back up for a second.
Cheryl, the furniture.
The furniture?
What do you think that probably means?
I don't want to say. I don't like that.
So, I just want to point out, in the book, she's married to like a mobster guy. Or not, she's married. She's seeing a mobster guy. She is not a prostitute.
She's just the mob guy's girlfriend.
And she winds up moving on. She's kind of in love with Andy, but then like the overpopulation gets to her and she goes on with rich people. There's nothing untoward about any of that, right? But in this, they make her a prostitute.
Oh, no.
A specific form of prostitute called furniture. You ever have a furnished apartment?
Yeah?
You know how like it comes with things?
No. Because what you are implying is that in the future, you can get a furnished apartment that is furnished with like a girlfriend.
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw this apartment, but it had a pretty neat center, like little step-down living area, and also it's got Cheryl.
No, this is the future the neckbeards want.
It's pretty bad.
I mean, is this consensual? Like, is she doing this for money? Is she a slave?
Honestly, a lot of those questions are unclear.
Oh my God.
She does wind up going with Charlton Heston for a little bit, but she also, and I just now realized this, she just kind of disappears. She's not really in the end of this movie. So,
I mean, she doesn't seem to have any sort of purpose other than just to be pretty and have the main character sleep with her. So why would you need her for the end, Patrick?
that's a good point.
Charlton Heston, Edward G. Robinson, Lee Taylor Young, Chuck Connors. Fight for survival and solve the most bizarre riddle ever to face mankind.
This is the police. I'm asking you to disperse. The supply of Soylent Green has been exhausted.
Why does Soylent Green mean life?
You must disperse. The scoops are on their way.
The scoops
Why
are on
does
their way.
Soylent Green mean
What are the
death?
scoops?
That's the scoop.
What is happening? They're getting scooped.
So tell me what's getting scooped.
People! People are getting scooped.
You do see people wearing masks,
Yeah, that's actually a accurate prediction.
including these people who don't know how to wear masks. Like, put it over your nose, buddy.
You put the mask over your nose. It does nothing.
It doesn't work if you don't put it over your nose.
Are the masks because of like pollution or like illness?
They don't say. Also, that mask is super dirty. I don't think it's doing any work.
That's gross. Also, why is everybody in the future always dress uniform? They're all wearing that kind of hat. Like,
Yeah, they all have the same hat.
why does everybody have the exact same dirty muslin, just conical cap?
So the film, in a lot of ways, mirrors the book. There's a murder, but now, like I said, it's opening up this world of Soylent. Charlton Heston is like the worst cop in the world in this. He's absolutely awful, which is an interesting choice that they make to just make him terrible. He shows up at this murder scene and immediately starts stealing everything.
Oh, no.
So he takes some steak from there. I'm going to show you this whole scene. I want you to tell me what you see at the beginning of the scene where he is coming home to his apartment with Saul.
That's a lot of people. Oh, he's just stepping on people, going up the stairs. Are they sleeping on the stairs?
That's just where they have.
Because they got no room. You know? Oh.
Hey, Saul!
Oh, it's Saul, S-O-L.
Short for Saul.
Okay.
What time
Wait,
is it?
there's all these people that are literally sleeping on the stairs outside, but they've got like a huge space. Like, I'm saying I'm starting to kind of get the whole squatters' rights thing.
No, it actually makes sense. Yeah.
Your next assignment. William R. Simonson. When how'd you get all these? Off his shelves. They were the only reference books he had.
Honestly, the
You
best
like
part of this movie is Charlton Heston and Edward G. Robinson's
Do you know how
rapport.
many books were
I
published
just
in
want,
this
like,
country once upon a time?
he stole all this from the
Paper,
dead
tar,
dude's
presses that
apartment.
worked and-
Right?
Straight up, didn't care. And also,
What the hell?
Fruit, vegetables.
L'chaim.
Neat.
Sal.
and then what is his reaction to seeing the beef?
Oh, this is sad.
Literal crying.
Oh my God. How do we come to this?
So the plot kind of continues, and he follows up on a few things, and ultimately it's Saul who unlocks the mystery. Those books that he drops off with Saul. Saul then goes to a council, and he talks with them, and honestly, it's super unclear, but Saul winds up understanding what's going on with Soylent. And what does Saul do with his knowledge? Kills himself. But not like
Okay.
not like, like in his apartment or anything. He goes to what apparently is society's solution for the elderly, a euthanasia place, which looks to be housed in a sports stadium. So I'm going to...
Oh, man. So, like, this isn't oh no, I found this horrible thing out. I can't live with myself anymore. I'm just gonna take my own life, like, in the moment. This is like a deliberate, I'm gonna go get euthanized.
Yeah, and honestly, considering the secret he finds out, none of it makes sense.
Oh, that literally is a stadium.
May I help you, sir?
Feels good.
Yes, sir. Won't you come in?
This has like some weird religious undertones to it. Like they're wearing these robes with gold cords and a lot of linen.
It feels like, and honestly, I know nothing about Scientology, but it feels like what the Church of Scientology would wear. Like it's futuristic and yet religious. So they ask him what his favorite color is. He says orange. So the room gets bathed in orange light because that's what you want with your favorite color.
Yeah, but it looks like sickly and...
He gets to drink probably wine. We get to see some old man chest hair.
Oh, man. Okay.
And he's taken whatever. He's going to die, but he's got some time. So this is how he gets to spend his final moments in life.
In just this room. In weird orange light. Naked.
Well, they don't want to have to take your clothes off later. Listening to classical music.
I'm just saying this is really peaceful looking for somebody who just found out like this horrible secret about humanity.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So what does Saul get to see here in his final moments?
So the room turns into like one of those hollow deck kind of rooms where all the walls now like project an image. And it's of course pastoral.
All of those things that they no longer have. And
Wow.
And of course, he is overwhelmed with emotion, being able to see all these beautiful scenes of nature that they no longer get a chance to see. I'm going to skip us forward a little bit. So, yeah, he dies.
Again, I want to point out that we have this population right now. I can just go outside. I can see green. And on any given day, I can probably see deer eating our freaking vegetables out of our garden.
And he gets a chance to talk to Saul, and Saul's like, you got to prove it. So
they find out that Soylent Green is people.
But there's no proof.
Okay.
So in order to prove it, he decides to follow Saul's casket. You can see the dump truck where they put the bodies.
Oh, that's the literal dump truck.
Yeah. I like that it's not a clean dump truck either.
Ugh. That's a lot of bodies.
Well, babe, there are 344 million Americans.
Okay.
So he stows aboard the truck, and he follows the truck all the way to the Soylent factory, and he goes sneaking around the Soylent factory. This is the action-packed finale here.
So they do have factories.
I mean, they manufacture one thing, crackers. Get a lot of shots of him going up and down stairs.
This is thrilling. This is the real action-packed sequence you were promising.
But people are wondering, what's he going to find out here? We see on a conveyor belt the bodies.
Okay. Still in their shrouds for some reason.
I'm going to assume these shrouds are like biodegradable/edible.
Don't like that. I like how these shrouds are like the cleanest fabric we've seen. You only get clean fabric when you're dead.
This is really weird to me.
This is a really long conveyor belt just to drop them off in this like pool of water.
Where they float.
Liquid. Yeah, they're all floating perfectly, like cleanly, like they're not even wet.
Charlton Heston runs down a hallway. Charlton Heston inspects industrial equipment.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm just saying they probably could have tightened this up a little bit.
They could have tightened this up significantly. This is just the 70s though, everything's slow. And there, the Soylent crackers. And that, I just want to point out, that's as close as he gets to proof. There's no other proof. And then there's kind of a shootout and everything, and they basically follow him back to this church, and that's where we get the final line.
It's people. Soylent Green is made out of people.
He said the line. Oh man, he's looking pretty rough.
He got shot.
Oh yeah.
Or he got stabbed, one or the other. I don't know, I don't remember.
They're making our food out of people. Next thing, they'll be breeding us like cattle for food.
Why would they need to breed us like cattle for food? There's already 344 million Americans.
There's too many people in the first place.
Listen to me, Hatcher. You gotta tell them Soylent Green is people! We gotta stop them somehow!
The movie makes a few other changes, too. A lot of them are, again, I think, better. They change the time period, so it's a little farther away, so not tying it to the millennium. They change the numbers of people so that it is larger. Just in, like, everything. I forget if they mentioned the specific number of people everywhere. But, for instance, the murders, it's now 137 murders a day, or 50,000. a year.
No, that's a lot. That's a lot of murder. I'll give you that.
That's a lot of murder.
I mean,
right
there's
there.
also a lot of people. I can't even imagine. Again, that is the same amount of people as we currently have.
Yeah. So that is Soylent Green, this dystopian look at the present year. Was this accurate?
No, no, this is absolutely insane to assume that I literally can go outside right now. Like there's room. I mean, you could definitely argue that distribution is an issue. I know for a fact that we globally are producing enough food to be able to feed our current world population. We suffer from being able to get the food to people who need it.
And what's funny is a lot of the changes that made that possible, that food production, were happening at the same time the book was written and before the film was produced. Norman Borlaug.
I was hoping you were going to talk about Norman Borlaug. If there is any sort of excuse for Patrick to bring in Norman Borlaug to a conversation, that man is going to do it.
As you know, Norman Borlaug was able to genetically engineer wheat so that it could produce yields that were 10 times that of average and no longer were being eradicated from like stem rust. And he is said to have saved 1 billion people by actually helping for us to produce wheat. Like, I don't want to downplay that they're talking about the ecological impact, but the concept that overpopulation is going to lead to starvation, which is going to lead to us eating each other, is just wildly off base.
That's just not even close to something that's going to happen. Even in countries that have significantly denser populations than we do, they're not resorting to eating each other.
Yeah, and there are famines right now, but there are no famines in the world that you would tie to overpopulation.
No.
Famines are a political phenomenon that are the result of choices by governments and often are the result of war.
Right. At this point, we're not able to blame famines simply on the climate or there being a drought or something like that. At this point, if there is a famine, that's the direct result of some sort of incompetence or willful negligence with people on top.
And I think another thing about this is that even though this comes before most of the science about climate change, they are right that we are creating this huge ecological impact on the earth. But what they get wrong is that the primary cause of that is the number of people. There are a lot of people who feel like even if we started to decrease our numbers of population, our ecological impact would actually go higher, because the more wealthy you are, often the larger your carbon footprint is.
Oh, I see. Yeah, this is rich people owning private jets and taking them everywhere because they have the disposable income to be able to do so. People who don't make a lot of money have smaller carbon footprints because they're doing things like living in apartments or taking public transportation, right?
Exactly. And so there's a lot of people who say that we should never worry about overpopulation, that there's other things that we actually need to worry about. And in fact, our overall population growth is starting to slow for the entire world. It is predicted that it will eventually top out at about 12 billion, and that's just where we'll be, and that we probably won't grow farther than that. Although we'll see in 2050, maybe we do another...
Yeah, we'll do an update. We've hit 12 billion. How we doing? Are we walking on people's faces yet?
So before we end this podcast, I have one more thing for us.
Okay.
One more thing we have to cover.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Is it about the things that are sitting on the table right now?
Yes, they are. So, Soylent, for this new generation, maybe people won't think of the film. They may think of these Soylent crackers, which I have purchased for us. So a guy named Rob Reinhart, this is a man who does not enjoy eating, but also doesn't want to die. And so he wanted something that was the most economical way for him to get all of his nutrition that did not require him to consume very much food.
And he decided that the name of this product was going to match the name of a product in a movie that is horrifyingly made out of people.
Well, I'm going to pause you right there because on the website it says, our founders named the product Soylent in homage to the novel Make Room by Harry Harrison. It's a dystopian sci-fi novel that explores population growth and world resources. Yes, we know that there is a Hollywood movie that is an adaptation of the book that involves people. See below. I just want to make this clear, did not see below. I stopped right there.
That's like people saying, like, we know that there's this guy out there who's also named Hitler, but we would also like to point out that we're not basing it off of that guy. We're basing it off of this other guy.
I named my dog Adolf after the other most famous Adolf, who I think's also a Nazi. I don't know.
Like, you have to recognize that people are not going to be familiar with make room. They're going to be familiar with Soylent Green is people.
Okay, well...
I thought it was a liquid. Like, I feel like I've seen it in stores where it's like bottles of Soylent.
I think that might be the most common part of this. I mean, I really have to tell you, I did so little research about this. I just wanted to make you eat this product. So I picked up what would, to me, most accurately match what's in the film. So I picked, they're not crackers, but a Soylent Squared, a complete nutrition bar. It has complete nutrition, as you can see there. It is gluten-free. It is vegan. It weighs less than an ounce. It's got 100 calories. Eat 20 of these in a day, and you've got your whole daily value of food.
I have a strong feeling I am not going to want to eat 20 of these in a day. I mean, I've had protein bars. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've had my share of quote-unquote complete nutrition in a bar. And as a whole, they are not nearly as good to me as, food. Okay.
All right, so let's open this up.
Right. Peanut butter chocolate chip. Oh, that's not a pretty bar.
It looks like fruitcake.
Oh, yeah, it does look like fruitcake.
So let's give this a shot. I should have tried to find a mint one, so maybe it was green.
Oh, I hate mint. Oh.
Yeah, I know. I should have tried to find a mint one.
Do I have to eat this whole thing?
Honestly, no, you don't.
It tastes worse than it smells.
I mean, it's a protein bar.
It does not. No, I have had way better protein bars than this.
It's a protein bar that doesn't have the coating of chocolate on the outside.
My mouth is dry as the Sahara. 28 vitamins, minerals, 9 amino acids, omega-3, omega-6. I am not surviving off of this. This is awful. It's stuck in my teeth.
Oh, God, it's so bad. Well, everyone, that's our show. If you like Mistopian, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It's the biggest and best way you can help us make sure that this podcast has a future. You can follow us at Mistopian Pod, that's MIS1S, Topian Pod, on all the major social media outlets, though we're mostly active on Twitter and Instagram. You can also check out our website, mistopianpod.com, to get more details about the sources and information used on our show. If you want to drop us a line, you can shoot us a DM on social media, or you can email us at contact@mistopianpod.com. You can follow Alex on Twitter and Instagram at IamTheBestAlex, and Patrick on AOL Instant Messenger, where you'll find all of my archived away messages. Until next time, remember our world is neither utopian nor dystopian. It's simply, we're going to say that together? No?
Are we going to say that again?
Mistopian! Tell me, if you had to eat a Soylent color-specific food, which color do you think would taste best?
Okay, I am basing this solely off of my experience with candy. I think I gotta go with red.
Okay, well, that is so completely wrong. I don't even know where to start.
What?
This is not candy. We're talking about your basic food, like, meal replacement thing. Why would you want it to taste like cherry? Like, it's gonna have a savory flavor. I want green.
Wait, why do you assume it has a savory flavor?
It's made out of people.
Ugh, I don't like those implications.
Let's stop there.